it's captured, they can curate it. And that's the big thing. That's where the consumption shift is going to move tremendously in the next 6 to 9 months for us. That's what we're seeing. And as a company, we're betting the ranch on that because it has to. I mean, for me, I use wearable tech, and we were discussing this earlier. But the mind shift is going to be not from activity tracking per se. It's going to move to activity driving. So the experience that I want, and the experience that I want my, the people that I'm working with, the clients and the projects that we're working on, is I want to be able to interleave something in your schedule that is a healthy prescription from an activity perspective. If I start really small, so I'm not interested in the day that you've had. What I'm interested in, the day that you're going to have. And what I'd like to be doing is, tweaking your day ever so slightly so I can start to incorporate some healthy habits into your lifestyle. So I'm not going to ask you tomorrow to go out and start competing and training for a triathlon. But what I'm going to do is try to work with you and understand on a personal level, what are those small things that you can accommodate and do consistently time and time again that will provide dividends for you as an individual from a health perspective. And then if you're a healthy employee, if I think of it from a corporate scenario, if you're a healthy employee, and I can get the belly of an organization, 60, 70, 80% of that organization to embrace that philosophy, there's dividends in it for your employer as well. And so hopefully at the micro end, there's a business case that we can look at and we can examine and we can also pull apart. So from the wearable technology angle, we are seeing right now, but the big consumption shift will change because I think probably most people in the audience who've got activity trackers, they're from they're health conscious and they're kind of athletic in nature. So you're getting a lot of guys from sporting backgrounds wearing the devices and looking at their stats, which is great. We've taken on a very tough objective as a company in that it's not that we're not interested in those guys, but my core audience are the people who need to move off the couch and do that 5K run. So how do I appeal to the individual who's developed very sedentary habits? How do I create a formula for them that's important, that's engaging, that allows them to put the TV remote down, or if you're a kid, put the Game Boy down, and you tell I'm not Game Boy savvy because I've got no idea what's out there at the moment, but drop the iPad and actually start doing something constructive on a daily basis. There's lots of research that we've been doing as a company, and 10 to 30 minutes a day, if we can build that into your schedule, we call it the 23.5-hour day, and there's lots of research online for this. If we can snag every day, build something in that we can get you that 30 minutes and get your heart rate up, there are huge dividends. And that's what we're looking to try to move from just tech to work with new consumption models and applications and build an ecosystem that will force that transition. So don't think activity tracking anymore. Think activity driving. And that's where we see, from our perspective, that's where all of our development and our effort is going over the next 6 to 9 months. And you'll see that trend. We're pretty sure of that.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Martin's app, which I think captures this ecosystem perfectly, and even innovation, the more I think about it, innovation in general, is he focuses on niche use cases. The successful winners in this aren't going to be the guys that build these huge, massive, robust platforms. It's going to be the companies that focus on a niche use case that makes people's lives more convenient, makes people's lives better. So it's, the guys that are going to win in kind of the interim are going to be the guys that nail a use case, make that use case make the use case so easy and convenient as a human being to consume. And that's going to drive it forward. But really, that's what the apps ecosystem on Apple is, right? On the iPhone, it's a bunch of niche apps that make the device so useful that you can't put it down. That's what's going to drive this ecosystem forward is niche use cases that will just go, and then they're going to expand a little bit more, and then they're going to expand a little bit more, and they're going to look up, and they're going to be huge multi-billion-dollar companies. So I love it.
I think what's also going to happen is the compression that's happening of bringing these large computers onto your wrist or embedded in your body. It's also going to reach out to pretty much every person on the planet. When we talked about mobile phones, I remember it was, I think, early 90s. It was this big and accessible by about 50 people in the city who could afford these and then put them in their car. Then they started shrinking and shrinking, and now you have every kid in college or school has a mobile phone, a pretty smart one at that. So what's really happening is, I think, besides reaching a few privileged few, if you like, who are into a very active lifestyle, there are guys who can't get off the couch, who simply can't. They don't have the ability to get off the couch. Either they're obese or they have disabilities. This is a very intimate device, and this is actually going to be on pretty much everyone's wrist or on everybody's body. So this transcends all economic borders. Everybody, a guy sitting on a field who's sowing seeds should be able to kind of know that there is no monsoon coming for the next 6 months. Are these seeds ever going to germinate? So what do I do? Maybe I don't plant something like this. I go with something that's intuitive to what the weather should be telling me, and what should I plant is the next question. And so we're constantly being fed data, but we're not able to process all of the data the way it should be processed and get a hypothesis out of a whole lot of stuff coming at us. So when you're talking about people who can't reach out, it'll be on them, so it's simply part of their existence. And I think what wearables are going to do is really be part of everybody's life. The other thing that we tend to see is also these devices are devices. They're piece of machinery, they're widgets, they're electronics. How do we make that personal? If I'm being woken up by a voice that says, wake up, it's 7 o'clock, wake up, it's not the most pleasant experience. I'm like, wake up, it's time, the kids got to go to school. That kind of experience is something that's more intuitive to a more human experience. Again, I come back to this human experience because, as you said, we touch, feel, see, and this intimate device on my wrist is part of me now. So I'd like it to treat me like the way I'd like to be treated, as opposed to a machine telling me this is how you deal with the watch, or this is how you actually tap, double tap harder, and this is how we do it. I think I, as a user, should actually start to make my experience based on what I want it to be, and the device should actually start morphing into an extension of my psyche, and that's probably the next wave.
Okay, thank you. So one interesting point is has been raised is the change from activity tracking to activity driving. So this basically will have probably a great impact on our lives, just like the evolution of PCs, World Wide Web, then social networking and smart phones and mobile applications. They have changed our life. So how do you think, guys, wearable technology can change our life?
It already has changed. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed whenever someone looks at their phone or they get a text message, what do? You immediately look at your phone and like you have it. If you hear a beep, it's like, and so we've already been impacted with how we interact with technology. And there's great persuasive technologists that are out there that really understand, just the small little bits and bytes of what drives us. If you see a red dot on your phone, what do? You click, right? And so people have gotten really, really smart about understanding how to drive and, manipulate you, but not necessarily always in a negative way. Sometimes it can be for a positive way to get you to interact with devices. And it's always done with like tiny little baby steps. And as we get better with the technology, we'll start to learn those tiny little baby steps that make us do things like maybe it's not necessarily get off the couch and go for a 10-mile run. Maybe it's just simply putting, a calendar down that you get a reminder you should go for a walk today. And then after that reminder's out there long enough, you actually get off the couch and you go for a walk. And then your walk turns into a run, and your run turns into a healthy lifestyle. Like that's the little baby use cases that will drive this technology forward. Wearable technology is the promise of that, just kind of even more so than the phone. Mark, you know a lot about driving, right?
Well, a little bit, yeah. So one of the things that we've done a lot of research on as a company, both corporately and also from a consumer angle, is there's a big question in terms of this is only going to have an impact based on adoption and sustainable adoption. So one of the big things that we've come across here in the region, but also we've done some work with University of California as well in terms of wearables are great, but sustained wearable technology that's the holy grail that we're pursuing, because we see, and I see they put a slide up there, there's an 85% dropout rate with wearable tech, and I'm sure if there's if there's wearable tech guys in the room who've had a device of sorts, we would probably find those statistics here. So, there was a study that was done actually in the Middle East, and so we're not talking about small sampling. This is about 60,000 people actually went through the process of wearables, and within 6 weeks, those things are back on the shelves gathering dust, which is kind of an interesting scenario. In the United States, at University of California, they came back with us. We were with them about 2 months ago. Their stats are a little bit less. So even in mature markets, which we're looking at, because this is important research for us to build on when we bring the tech to developing markets. In mature markets, it's an 80% dropout rate. But in the research that these guys have in California, it's an 80% dropout rate, but they're flipping 2 or 3 devices before they drop out. That's a very interesting formula. So there's obviously something which the devices are not. It's great that they're tracking, but that doesn't have the sense of I'm being driven. So we came up with a very simple and, dare I say, a very crass formula as a company that we thought, let's try and change the formula here. And we addressed the psychology of rewards. So we thought we're going to answer the big question, which everybody who wears one of these devices, they get to a certain point, 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, and then they get to I've got a certain level of fitness. And then they ask the question, what's in it for me? And I can't tell you how many consumers have come back to us and said, I've been wearing this gadget now for 3 months. I'm getting a little bit fitter, but now what? Health actually isn't enough. So we created a concept of a reward system and sets of programs that the device itself actually embeds into. So we're pretty insistent on a company that we don't want you to buy the device. What we want you to do is to buy an outcome. So if it's a weight loss outcome, if it's an assured pregnancy outcome, if it's I need to lower my insulin intake, if that's the kind of outcome that you're looking for, that's what we want to use as the event to prompt engagement, not necessarily just tracking. And what we're actually seeing is the needle moving actually quite swiftly. So a lot of the engagement rates that we're working with right now are between sort of low 60s and high 70s, depending on the type of institution that we're working with. So from our perspective, it's having a change, but it's dependent on the formula that you put in. So if you've got a simple formula that says, I'm going to track and I'm going to get fit, the formula is okay for about 6 to 8 weeks. What I'm interested in is how do I keep you engaged and how do I keep that momentum going for a minimum of 180 days. And I say 180 days because if you're interested in weight loss or you're interested in some stabilization health-wise, you won't achieve that in less than 3 months. Yeah. So we want to get you to looking at a horizon that you can commit to 180 days, so 6 months, 9 months, and during that horizon, if we incentivize you with all sorts of personalization and all sorts of rewards which are meaningful to you on that journey, because it's a personal journey, and we need to take that journey with you as a company. When you reach the end, there's something nice for you in a nutshell. And then it's not only just about your health, it's about rewarding you through that process as well. We tend to find that can be life-changing. So I know as individuals, myself included, so I'm not giving you guys a hard time. I'm that way inclined. If I can work on this process, and we're working on this now when we did a launch in India, and one of the things we're offering, believe it or not, is something very simple like talk time. So the fitter you get, the more talk time you get on your mobile phone. Simple. But that's a very interesting formula. So people like to talk. So the fitter you are, the more you can talk. So if we get some wearable tech to monitor that jaw moving, we'll see how we get on with that one. But that's just a very simple formula, which is really embraced. And that's what we want to do. We want to underpin the individual journey so that they can make that shift, which has got to be longer and more sustainable than just a 6-week to 3-month engagement. And then we're going to see having a dramatic impact on you as an individual. And hopefully, if you're a parent and kids see you making those changes, they'll embrace those as well. So you can call it, I'm a romantic at heart. I'm not going to die. It's all about the individual. It's all about the passion of your journey that drives me. Unfortunately, I'm not about the charismatic gadget. I'm about seeing a successful outcome at the individual level, and that's what's going to drive us as a company, and continue to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. Anil, what do you think? Are wearable devices changing our lives?
I think it will. I don't think there is a question of whether it will or not. It's here, it's happening. I still do believe that we have to make it one, perceptive, intuitive, and be able to understand me as a person. So I think personalization of that whole experience is what's going to drive adoption. We don't want to be told things. I think there are certain things we just have to know. It just becomes part of us. I think that has to become part of our DNA, and it will. So when you talk of adoption, as you said, kids born like today are going to be born into a wearable world. That's a de facto available standard. So all the past doesn't mean anything to them. So kids being born in today are born into a wearable world, and they're going to expect what they want to see and what they want to hear. So I think it's a question of time, but it's going to happen. Apps being developed will be developed for that intuitive experience.
Okay, thank you. So guys, what's next? So what kind of devices, what kind of applications are we going to see in next futures? And how big is the market for wearable devices?
So every analysts get paid because you buy their stuff. The only way you buy their stuff is if they tack on a couple more $1 billion. And so it's like, I remember when we first started, the market was going to be $18 billion by like 2018, and the last report I read is going to be $96 billion. What it really says is that this is just the disruption of everything, right? The way that people are going to be successful is two things. One, they're going to be empathetic, and two, there's a reason why this thing right here is the most useful, convenient thing on the planet. Raise your hands, guys, if you go to the airport and you forget your phone. Raise your hand if you would turn around. Yeah. Right? I mean, you forget your kid can stay, but my phone, I got to have my phone. It's because this is convenient. It makes your life easier. The reason why you put down these devices and don't use them is because the level of convenience hasn't overcome your